Hello. Before the rise of the South USA and Afghan drug lords who divided the global drug market, the stories of drug emperors were once a domestic affair among the crime bosses of the Golden Triangle in Southeast Asia. But have you ever wondered how these individuals managed to spread their drugs across the world, spreading the White Death? The answer lies in this photo. The person you're looking at is Frank Lucas, one of the most successful drug lords in the history of crime. He was so notorious that Hollywood even made a film about his life, titled USA Gangster. Frank Lucas was the bridge that connected the drugs from the Golden Triangle to the rest of the world, and the way he did it was considered unprecedented. So, what did he do? Let's find out through this video. The film USA Gangster is a successful portrayal of the life of Frank Lucas, the kingpin of a drug empire that once dominated the USA market, particularly Harlem and the entire country during the 1960s and 1970s. From a poor, uneducated black man, Frank Lucas rose to build an empire that was previously only controlled by Italian mafia organizations. In reality, Frank Lucas wasn't as handsome, suave, or calm as Denzel Washington portrayed him on screen. In truth, Frank was a burly black man with curly hair, thick lips, and a bulky frame that only grew larger with age. Born in 1930 in California, from the moment he took his first breath, Frank Lucas's life was destined to be the plot of a villain in a crime film. Like his counterparts in Southeast Asia or Pablo Escobar in Colombia, the impoverished life of an immigrant black boy didn't offer Frank Lucas any chance to rise through education. Instead, from a young age, Frank was surrounded by violent images, with the victims often being black USAs like himself. At the age of 6, Frank witnessed his 12-year-old cousin being threatened by a police officer who shoved a gun into his mouth, breaking his front teeth. By the age of 12, Frank was already familiar with the racial violence inflicted by the Ku Klux Klan. He harbored a burning desire to change his life by making as much money as possible to gain the power he longed for. In 1946, Frank Lucas left the muddy fields of North Carolina for New York, carrying with him the dream of becoming wealthy. However, with no opportunity for high society to welcome him, he quickly got caught up in the whirlpool of New York's slums. By 1963, he was taken in by Ellsworth "Bumpy" Johnson, a notorious drug lord who had just been released from prison as his personal driver and bodyguard. During the years working for Johnson, Frank Lucas rarely spoke, but his eyes and ears were always wide open, absorbing every trick and connection in the street drug trade. The turning point in Frank Lucas's life came in 1968, when Bumpy Johnson unexpectedly died of a heart attack while dining at a restaurant. Not wanting to be left without a master or to serve another, Frank Lucas decided to use all the capital and experience he had learned from Johnson to build his own drug empire. He recruited his 5 younger brothers and a slew of other relatives from back home to New York to form a vast retail drug network, covering dozens of poor streets in the suburbs of New York, all under the guise of laundromats, auto repair shops, and grocery stores. Very quickly, Frank realized that the retail drug cartels, whether Italian mafia or black gangsters, had one thing in common: insatiable greed. They often tried to maximize their profits by raising drug prices to the highest levels while diluting the purity of the drugs to a minimum to increase their competitive advantage. Frank decided to do the opposite by selling the purest drugs at the lowest possible price. To achieve this, he needed a plentiful supply, buying directly from the source and selling directly to the consumer, cutting out the middlemen. With this in mind, by 1969, Frank began spending time traveling extensively, even venturing to Bangkok, Thailand, to purchase drugs directly from the source. His regular stop in Bangkok was Jack's USA Star Bar, a club frequently visited by many African USA soldiers. Through Luechi Ruliwat, a Chinese Thai bar owner, Frank was able to connect with a Teochew Chinese drug lord nicknamed 007, from whom he ordered drugs to be shipped back to the USA. 007 was originally an officer of the Kuomintang, KMT, who fled to Myanmar after the KMT was driven out of mainland China by the Communist Party in October 1949. He later drifted to northeastern Thailand and became a drug lord in the Golden Triangle region. The supply of drugs from 007 was virtually limitless, but transporting it to the USA was a major challenge. As a result, for a long time, Frank Lucas could only purchase small amounts, just enough to distribute to his subordinates, mostly his cousins, who were managed by his 5 younger brothers and sold the drugs on the streets of New York. The saying, "Fortune favors the bold," seems fitting in the criminal world, and Frank Lucas's boldness extended not just to New York, but all the way to Bangkok. As you may know, before the rise of Islamic militants and 20th century cowboys in Latin USA who created their own drug havens, the world had only one true drug haven, the Golden Triangle. During the 1960s and 70s, the Golden Triangle supplied up to 60% of the world's drugs. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, Frank Lucas was the key link that connected drugs from the Golden Triangle to the rest of the world. So, if you were a crime lord, how would you transport them to ensure maximum safety? Shipping them by train? Not bad, but not good enough. Digging tunnels across the border? That's an option, but it's just a small-time method. Frank Lucas will show you what real magic looks like when the drugs are right in front of you, but you don't even notice. The Vietnam War deeply divided USA society with nearly 60,000 soldiers killed there, especially after the Tet Offensive in 1968. You might be wondering, what does the Vietnam War have to do with Lucas? In fact, it has a lot to do with him. This was a crucial element in Lucas's magic trick. In cultural beliefs from east to west, the dead need to be buried in their homeland no matter where they die. For USA, it was no exception. The flights carrying the bodies of soldiers back to their families were always filled with tears, grief, and loss. But for Lucas, these flights were the perfect cover for his drug shipments. At this point, you can probably guess how he smuggled the drugs around the world, right? That's correct. Through the coffins of USA soldiers killed in Vietnam. Frank Lucas's career as a drug lord took a dramatic turn in 1972. During a trip to Bangkok, Lucas stopped by Jack's USA Star Bar, a place he often visited during his heroin buying trips in Thailand. At this bar, Lucas happened to meet a fellow USA Leslie Ike Atkinson, who was married to one of his cousins. Atkinson was a former sergeant and chef in the USA Army and a co-owner of the bar. When Lucas asked Atkinson for help in obtaining a visa, Atkinson was eager to assist and took Lucas to the Thai embassy in Washington, D.C. During their conversation along the way, Atkinson boasted that there wasn't a single African USA soldier in Vietnam or Thailand that he didn't know. He also hinted at his ambition to become a billionaire, revealing that he had connections with drug trafficking networks within the military. And if you're wondering how Atkinson came to have these connections, the answer lies in the fact that the Vietnam War created the largest drug-addicted army in USA history. It wasn't Frank Lucas or Pablo Escobar, but the USA government itself that created this massive army of addicts. In 1971, the USA House of Representatives published a special report showing that from 1966 to 1969, the USA Armed Forces consumed a total of 225 million stimulant pills, primarily Dexedrine, a drug derived from amphetamines. During this period, the average USA soldier consumed 21.1 Dexedrine pills annually, with the Air Force consuming 17.5 pills, and the Army 13.8 pills per soldier each year. According to Dr. Kamiensky's research, 3.2% of USA soldiers were addicted to amphetamines before being deployed to Vietnam, but just 1 year later, this rate had risen to 5.2%. A 1971 investigation by the USA House of Representatives revealed that approximately 70% of USA soldiers who served in Vietnam had used drugs. To give you a clearer picture, around 6.6 million USA soldiers served in Vietnam, of which 4.6 million had used drugs. Among them, 15% were heavily addicted, amounting to about 693,000 USA soldiers struggling with addiction. And nothing could be more convenient than having a local drug supply from the Golden Triangle with a transit point at air bases in Thailand. All they needed was the means and someone daring enough to transport them to South Vietnam. This became relatively simple because with money, anything can be bought. and thus a drug trafficking network was established with Atkinson becoming a key figure in this operation. Returning to the main story, trusting his brother-in-law Frank Lucas, Atkinson did not hesitate to boast that he had access to 28 replicas of the various coffins used to transport the bodies of USA soldiers killed in Vietnam back to the USA through Bangkok. When Lucas proposed a partnership, Atkinson immediately agreed. For the first deal, Frank Lucas purchased 100 kilograms of drugs from 007 at $4,000 per kilogram at Jack's USA Star Bar. The drugs were divided into smaller portions, with each kilogram packed into 4 packages. The flights carrying the bodies of USA soldiers from Vietnam would stop over in Bangkok, where the coffins would be swapped with the replicas. The coffins were modified with double bottoms, and the drugs were stashed in the space between the 2 bottoms, then sealed with screws. The official paperwork for transporting the bodies, which Atkinson had cleverly forged with the help of officials at air bases in Vietnam, ensured that the coffins containing the drugs would not be inspected. These coffins would be transported directly to Fort Bragg Air Force Base, and on the way from the base to the cemetery, usually at night, they would have a very brief stopover at distribution points arranged by Frank Lucas. There, the drugs would be unpacked and then distributed through the system down to the streets of USA. Each 250-gram package of drugs was sold by Lucas to retail dealers for $25,000 per package, equivalent to $100,000 per kilogram, yielding a profit of $96,000 per kilogram. For many years, the drug smuggling operations using coffins, orchestrated by Frank Lucas and Atkinson, ran smoothly. Atkinson was clever in only placing drugs in large, heavy coffins and never in those of smaller, lighter USA soldiers, ensuring that the slight increase in weight of the coffins did not arouse suspicion. On average, each coffin could conceal between 6 to 8 kilograms of drugs, with each kilogram divided into 4 smaller packages. The volume of orders and the quantity of drugs per shipment continuously increased, and the Bangkok-based drug operation could no longer handle the task of faking coffins. To address this issue, Atkinson hired a talented carpenter named Leon from North Carolina to Bangkok to create double-bottom coffins. Leon knew that the coffin replicas were meant to aid Atkinson and Frank Lucas in smuggling, but he was unaware that the cargo being transported was heroin. Nevertheless, Leon was handsomely paid for his work. In the USA, drugs with 99% purity were processed by a team of 10 to 12 women who cut and mixed the substance with 60% cutting agent, primarily quinine, to create a product called Blue Magic, which was distributed to dealers. This product was then distributed to dealers before reaching the users. The drugs were cut and mixed with cutting agents multiple times, so by the time it reached the users, the purity was only about 10 to 12%. Despite this, the actual price ranged from $300,000 to $500,000 per kilogram, which was still much cheaper and of significantly better quality than other retail drugs from different sources. Before long, Blue Magic quickly became a highly sought-after brand among drug addicts and street dealers. Even renowned drug trafficking organizations in New York, such as Nicky Barnes' crew and Dominic Catano's Italian mafia family, had to partner with the Lucas family for supply. Naturally, once the drugs were received, further processing and cutting continued, so that by the time they reached the users, the purity in each package was around 3%. To protect the Blue Magic brand, the Lucas family had to carry out a series of brutal purges against both partners and competitors. At the same time, the Lucas family faced numerous attacks from other gangs trying to eliminate them as rivals. Frank Lucas explained that to get rich, they had to keep their product prices lower than competing dealers. On the other hand, to sell more drugs, they needed to ensure a high purity supply so users could get more use out of the drugs. Other dealers often mixed too much, causing users to overdose faster. Soon, Blue Magic became an irreplaceable brand, generating Frank Lucas substantial revenue of no less than $1 million per day. Lucas moved his entire family to New Jersey, bought a large farm of over 2,000 acres with more than 300 cattle for his mother to retire on, and also purchased homes for his siblings. Within his family, Frank Lucas built a comprehensive and solid empire. Lucas personally owned several rental buildings in Detroit, along with numerous expensive apartments in Los Angeles, Miami, New York, and even Puerto Rico, his wife Juliana Ferrete's hometown. Additionally, Frank Lucas had tens of millions of dollars deposited in various bank accounts in the Cayman Islands. By this time, Lucas's assets were estimated to be up to $52 billion, a colossal amount rivaling today's major real estate and tech conglomerates. The money earned from drug dealing was invested by Lucas in restaurants, bars, dance clubs, and real estate. To garner further support from the community, Lucas also distributed food to the poor in Harlem, similar to how Escobar did later on. Frank Lucas also engaged in Robin Hood-like activities, helping the community as a way to boost public support. As the age-old story goes, every empire, no matter how prosperous, eventually faces decline. Frank Lucas's empire was no exception. Stay tuned for the next video to find out how this drug lord's empire collapsed. In the previous video, we explored Frank Lucas's journey from an unknown figure to a powerful drug lord. Fairly speaking, without the support of American soldiers and the USA government, individuals like Frank Lucas would not have had the opportunity to do business. Experts often suggest that the Vietnam War altered the global landscape, including the underworld. The collapse of the drug empire was not an end, but the beginning of a new empire. So how did Frank Lucas's empire collapse? Lucas's empire was born out of the Vietnam War and thrived thanks to USA intervention. However, after the Tet Offensive in 1968, USA resolve for the war had drastically waned. They began withdrawing troops from Vietnam and understandably did not want addicted soldiers to become a burden on a society already strained by the war's conflicts and debts. Thus, the largest drug rehabilitation campaign in USA history, named Golden Flow, was launched. This campaign not only took place in Vietnam, but also extended to the USA, with the government determined to eradicate drug lords, including Frank Lucas. To manage the drug distribution system, Lucas established his headquarters at 933 Sheffield Avenue in Teaneck, New Jersey. This was not only his residence, but also the center for overseeing the expanding drug flow. From the sources provided by Lucas gangster families, such as Nicky Barnes and Dominic Catano, set up drug distribution networks across New York, North American, and even into Canada. Meanwhile, Lucas, the primary supplier, also built his own retail system, managing at least 44 streets in New York, almost all of Manhattan, the entire New Jersey region, and North Carolina. Notably, the entire system, from the recipients, women packing the drugs, to the street dealers, consisted of Lucas's close associates and relatives. He did not trust outsiders, only believing in family members whom he thought would not steal, betray, or tarnish the brand. Lucas also made sure to bribe the public system, renting dozens of locker boxes at the central New Jersey train station. Each box had 2 keys, one kept by Lucas, and the other distributed to dozens of police officers or public officials from low to high ranks. Weekly or monthly bribes would be deposited into the lockers, awaiting corrupt officials to collect them in order to secure the public system's indifference and protect his drug empire. Despite being meticulous and implementing numerous precautions, Frank Lucas's drug empire did not escape the attention of Richard "Richie" Roberts, a dedicated and resolute inspector from the New Jersey Drug Enforcement Administration. The Blue Magic brand came under Roberts' scrutiny as soon as it appeared. Roberts gained fame after turning in an unclaimed briefcase containing $1 million in cash with no documentation, obtained from a car search after its owner had fled. Roberts noticed that despite arresting or eliminating many drug lords, but the amount of drugs on the streets did not decrease. This indicated a stable and ample supply of drugs being funneled into New Jersey, where he was assigned. Therefore, he decided not to rush into arresting street-level dealers, but to track down the primary suppliers. Frank Lucas's secretive and cautious habits were not fully inherited by his wife, Juliana Ferrete, a beauty from Puerto Rico. Enchanted by the luxurious lifestyle, Juliana bought Lucas a $15,000 mink coat and a matching $40,000 hat. She insisted that Lucas wear the expensive outfit when going out with her. While monitoring some Italian mafia figures at the historic boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, Roberts was drawn to Frank Lucas's expensive mink coat. This intrigued him because the man wearing the luxurious coat was not a well-known millionaire, and the elegant wife beside him was not a famous celebrity. Moreover, this couple had secured the best seats in the stands, right next to the governor and senators, while the powerful mafia bosses Roberts was observing were seated in much less prominent positions. This led Roberts to question, who is this unknown millionaire? As he expanded his investigation, Roberts discovered that Frank Lucas was not known in high society and was not the owner of a major production company. However, the vast wealth Lucas possessed, along with his complex family network, was entirely disproportionate to his background and profession. From that moment, Frank Lucas officially came under Richie Roberts' scrutiny. For over 3 years, even though Roberts had identified Frank Lucas as the mastermind and operator of the Blue Magic drug distribution network, he had yet to find concrete evidence to arrest the drug lord. Moreover, his investigation was continually obstructed from multiple levels, including within the anti-drug unit itself, with some members unhappy about Roberts' inquiry. Every time Roberts was on the verge of obtaining evidence, Frank Lucas always seemed one step ahead, creating alibis to evade legal scrutiny. Both Lucas and Roberts were acutely aware of each other, knowing who the other was and what they were trying to achieve. In early January 1975, as the fighting in South Vietnam marked the complete collapse of the USA-backed South Vietnamese government, this news was constantly updated by the media, signaling bad news for the criminal world, particularly for Frank Lucas. Even though he knew he was being closely watched, Lucas recklessly decided to fly to Thailand for one last shipment, hoping to make a profit because he knew he would have to end his drug trafficking career. During the days when the jungles of South Vietnam were shaking with the Liberation Army's battles, it was almost a race for Lucas. All the resources that the drug lord 007 and bar owner Luechi Ruliwat had collected from the Golden Triangle region were to be handed over to Frank Lucas, despite warnings that he should withdraw before it was too late. Leaving did not mean running away, but Lucas remained determined and went into the Golden Triangle himself to oversee the collection of the enormous order of 2,000 kilograms of drugs. Greed is easily contagious. Leslie Ike Atkinson, a partner of Lucas, decided to take advantage of the situation for personal gain. He chose not to send the $3 million shipment in coffins as originally planned, but to mix it with the personal belongings of deceased soldiers being sent back to USA for their families. As soon as Frank Lucas left the USA for Thailand, Richie Roberts quickly discovered this. He promptly arrested a Lucas associate who was both a close friend and a trusted dealer of the drug lord. By threatening and persuading him, Roberts forced the associate to reveal Lucas's detailed plan. All activities, calls, and movements of both Atkinson and Lucas were closely monitored. Thanks to this, Roberts obtained the flight number that would transport the drug shipment from Thailand to Fort Bragg, with the flight number coded into license plate numbers in the phone calls. Roberts's operation nearly failed, threatening his entire anti-drug career. The drug problem within the USA military had long been flagged, with the media continuously exposing and criticizing the military for initially denying involvement in international drug trafficking. Roberts's request to search the coffins at the military base faced strong opposition from the military on humanitarian grounds, arguing that no one should disturb coffins or disrespect fallen soldiers. Although Roberts eventually won the right to conduct the search, but he found only dead bodies and no drugs in the coffins. Given the enormous quantity of drugs and the fact that each double-bottomed coffin could hold only a small amount, Atkinson decided to take a risk by using real coffins instead. These coffins contained only the drugs, with no bodies, and the last-minute change in the transport plan caught Richie Roberts by surprise, leaving him unable to respond in time. His investigation was at risk of being closed indefinitely. While Atkinson and Lucas's change of plan inadvertently avoided detection by Roberts, Atkinson's greed unintentionally led to his downfall. Atkinson packed his own shipment into 2 bags, labeling the recipients as 2 elderly African USA women in Fayetteville, North Carolina. In his haste, Atkinson mistakenly wrote the wrong address on one of the bags. The woman receiving the shipment realized, even without opening it, that the package had been delivered to the wrong address. Suspecting it might contain a bomb, so she turned it over to the police. When the police discovered the drugs inside, they handed it over to the anti-drug unit. It didn't take long for forensic experts to find Atkinson's fingerprints on the package and track down and seize the second bag. On January 19, 1975, Atkinson was arrested, and Roberts regained the right to investigate, which had seemed completely dismissed. Unlike what is depicted on screen, there were no shootouts or deaths during the simultaneous searches of Frank Lucas's properties. However, the 2,000 kilograms of drugs, which had not yet been distributed or packaged, were seized in full. The next step for Roberts was to go with his team directly to the church where Frank Lucas and his family were attending a service to arrest him and take him straight to federal prison with no resistance. To mitigate his sentence, Frank Lucas agreed to cooperate with the law, represented by his adversary Richie Roberts, in exchange for a 70-year prison term. He disclosed numerous corrupt police officers who had been paid to turn a blind eye to his drug empire. From his testimony, 52 out of 70 anti-drug police officers in New Jersey were arrested and prosecuted. Many of Frank Lucas's assets obtained through drug trafficking were seized, including bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, totaling $52 million. Thanks to this cooperation, Lucas's prison sentence was reduced from 70 years to 15 years, and he was placed in the Federal Witness Protection Program. In 1981, Frank Lucas was released, but falling back into old habits, was tempted by drugs again. In 1984, he was caught transporting 13 kilograms of cocaine and was sentenced to an additional 7 years in prison. By 1991, Frank Lucas was released once more. After the Frank Lucas case, Richie Roberts continued to serve in the anti-drug unit for another 7 years before transitioning to a career as a lawyer. Notably, his first client was Frank Lucas. Thanks to his eloquence, Roberts demonstrated the importance of Frank Lucas's cooperation in the fight against drugs, securing a reduction in his client's sentence from 70 years to 15 years, and ensuring he received witness protection as mentioned. During Frank Lucas's imprisonment, Richie Roberts continued to support and provide financial assistance to raise Lucas's son, Raymond Lucas, who later became a talented hip-hop artist. When Frank Lucas was released, Richie Roberts was there to pick him up, and today, these former adversaries remain close friends. Despite not returning to prison after 1991, Frank Lucas encountered legal trouble again in 2012 for falsely claiming $17,000 in disability benefits. Lucas was sentenced to 5 years of probation due to his advanced age and health issues. His life became the inspiration for the famous film American Gangster, in which American actor Denzel Washington portrayed the drug lord Lucas. Lucas even advised Washington on acting, though he later admitted that the film's script contained more dramatic elements than his real-life story. However, the end of the Blue Magic Empire was not the end, but rather a transition to another criminal empire. While Lucas was serving his sentence, the focus of the drug empire shifted from the Golden Triangle in Myanmar to the Golden Crescent in Afghanistan, with new drug lords like Pablo Escobar and others emerging. A new cycle of criminal activity began. On May 30th, 2018, Frank Lucas passed away at his home, surrounded by family. His ending might be considered relatively gentle compared to the turmoil he caused throughout his life. I once served as the right-hand man to some of the most dreadful people who called themselves leaders, even when I was one of the biggest arms dealers in the world. Your boss, the President of the USA, moves as many weapons in a day as I do in a year. Though sometimes he hesitates, unwilling to get directly involved in the arms trade, sometimes he needs a free agent like me to supply weapons to forces he can't directly support. That's why they call me the devil, but sadly, I'm a devil with a purpose. These are the words of Yuri Orlov, a character in the 2005 film Lord of War. Though he is a fictional character, the film vividly portrays the harsh realities behind criminals like him. You might not know that the movie is based on a real person, Victor Bout, who is widely known as the Merchant of Death. So, who is Victor Bout? On December 25th, 1991, The Soviet Union officially dissolved after 74 years of existence. The collapse of the Soviet Union was not only a cause for celebration in the USA, the West, or the Russian mafia, but it also left behind a strategic treasure trove for criminal organizations. This treasure trove included highly trained, cunning, and deceitful operatives, specifically KGB agents. When the Soviet Union fell, the KGB also disbanded. Thousands of agents suddenly found themselves unemployed, forcing them to seek other ways to make a living. For many, the easiest path was to join or become key partners of mafia gangs, exploiting the vast stockpile of Soviet weapons. During those years, the Soviet Union's arsenal was a massive cash cow waiting to be tapped. Just imagine an arsenal large enough to equip 4.5 million active duty troops and millions of reservists, and you can grasp its enormity. Selling just a third of these weapons would be enough to make those involved incredibly wealthy, and Viktor Bout was no exception. Viktor Bout, whose full name is Bout Anatolyevich Bout, was born on January 13, 1967, in a village near Dushanbe, Tajikistan, then part of the Soviet Union. From a young age, Bout showed himself to be an intelligent child with a knack for persuading others. After graduating from the Soviet Union's Military Foreign Language Institute in Moscow, where he became fluent in 6 languages including Persian and Esperanto, Bout served in the Soviet military as a translator with the rank of lieutenant. In the 1980s, Bout, a Portuguese speaker, served under a KGB officer named Igor Sechin, who later became Russia's deputy prime minister. Thanks to his quick thinking and adaptability, Bout earned the trust of his superiors and became a negotiator in many of the Soviet Union's arms deals with African nations. In late 1987, Viktor Bout left Angola, Africa. Before that, Angola had experienced a civil war involving 3 factions: the People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, MPLA, the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, UNITA, and the National Liberation Front of Angola, FNLA. The USA and South Africa supported UNITA and the FNLA, while the MPLA received support only from the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union supplied the MPLA with military equipment such as armored vehicles, aircraft, and ammunition, even deploying Soviet military units to Angola to create a favorable military balance for the MPLA. With this strong support, the MPLA and its military shifted from guerrilla warfare to strategic offensives, taking control of the capital, Luanda, and 3/4 of the territory, forcing UNITA to adopt guerrilla tactics. During his time in Angola, Viktor Bout was known as a lieutenant colonel, responsible for operating cargo flights for refueling. When the Soviet Union and the socialist countries disbanded along with the dissolution of the KGB, Viktor Bout was discharged. Like many others, he began trading popular goods in Russia at the time, such as jeans, beer, and Coca-Cola. However, it didn't take long for Bout to realize his opportunity when the Soviet Union's stockpiled weapons fell into disarray. Officers and soldiers, who were no longer being paid, were willing to sell anything they had if there was a buyer. With massive stockpiles of weapons scattered across the former Soviet Union's territories, particularly in Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, this was a vast resource waiting to be exploited. In reality, this was also the path many former KGB agents took after being discharged. They became reputable traders, supplying weapons to the Russian mafia and smuggling them worldwide. For Viktor Bout, this venture was even more convenient due to his 10 years of experience delivering Soviet weapons to forces fighting against the USA in Africa. Moving these goods worldwide was as easy as flipping a switch for him. And this was when Viktor Bout officially made a name for himself in history as the most successful arms dealer in human history, a true Lord of War. Seeing a vast arsenal of weapons before him, Viktor Bout, with his sharp mind, quickly established one of the largest arms trafficking routes at the time. The Soviet Union had disbanded, and Russia's economy was almost destroyed under Boris Nikolaevich Yeltsin's era, leaving thousands of Russian pilots unemployed, especially those who had served in the Soviet Air Force. Drawing on his decades of experience as a negotiator, Viktor Bout attracted hundreds of outstanding pilots to work for him. Bout developed an aviation network for arms trafficking so large that it rivaled the military scale of many medium-sized nations. Using an Ilyushin Il-76 cargo plane, Bout shifted his business to arms, dealing including tanks, armored vehicles, surface-to-air missiles, Alaska, 47 assault rifles, RPD light machine guns, DSHK 12.7mm heavy machine guns, and RPG anti-tank weapons. Ironically, his first arms deal was selling to the UNITA guerrilla forces, the same group that the People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, MPLA, had previously defeated. This deal earned Bout a significant profit, but Bout's influence didn't stop at supplying weapons to organizations and forces in major conflicts worldwide. He was also a significant figure in global arms transactions. He sold weapons to Charles Taylor, the Liberian leader, in exchange for diamonds, provided weapons to Colonel Muammar al-Gaddafi in Libya in exchange for oil, and notably during the Syrian civil war, Victor Bout's weapons contributed to the deaths of 150,000 people. The words of Yuri Orlov, the fictional character in the movie Lord of War, that sometimes you need a free agent to supply weapons to forces others can't, became eerily accurate in reality. Victor Bout also made a similar statement, saying, "You may think of me as an arms dealer, taking lives, but the truth is, if I don't do it, someone else will." In a meeting with UN Weapons Inspector Dragomir Karic at a hotel in Congo in 1996, Victor Bout was criticized for his planes carrying weapons to those who used them to violate human rights. Bout coldly replied, "That's strange. The truth is, I only provide logistics." And indeed, he was right. Bout played the role of a logistics provider, but he was the most crucial one. Bout provided weapons to the National Union for the total independence of Angola, UNITA, but by then, they were already weakened and reduced to a minor force. Before that, when UNITA was still strong, the USA played the most significant role in supporting them. In 1995, Bout received a phone call from a Sunni Muslim cleric from the border region between Pakistan and Afghanistan. The caller informed him that the leader of the Taliban, Mullah Omar, wanted to meet with him. Bout knew the Taliban hated him because he had previously supplied weapons to the Afghan government. However, when Mullah Omar officially invited him, Bout realized the Taliban were in desperate need of arms. At that time, the Taliban controlled most of Afghanistan, and Mullah Omar requested Victor Bout to supply 30 tons of weapons to their forces. Bout quickly fulfilled this request, and within just over 2 months with 45 flights, he delivered a large quantity of arms to Afghanistan, playing a crucial role in helping the Taliban capture the capital Kabul. Ironically, when the Northern Alliance led by Ahmad Shah Massoud was formed with the goal of overthrowing the Taliban, it was Victor Bout who also sold weapons to this force. Similarly, in 2000, Victor Bout and his team, whom he called the Young Guys from Moscow, went to Rwanda, Africa at the invitation of President Paul Kagame to train the country's military on using various weapons, including chemical weapons provided by Bout. Victor Bout once remarked that it was absurd to call him a merchant of death, while other nations, such as the USA, had arms trading companies. What should they be called? He sarcastically suggested that if he was labeled a merchant of death, then those nations should be called the masters of death merchants. This can be seen as a biting commentary by Bout on the USA and its allies, who, according to him, were the ones instigating wars, creating opportunities for people like him to profit. By the age of 30, Victor Bout had become a billionaire with a fleet of 60 transport planes registered in the Central African Republic under the seemingly innocent name Central African Air Transport Company. However, this was merely a front for his arms trading business. When the war between Israel and Hezbollah broke out, USA intelligence discovered that Victor Bout was meeting with several high-ranking Hezbollah leaders in a safe house on the outskirts of Beirut. The meeting's agenda was none other than arms trading, and one of the weapons Bout sold was used to shoot down an Israeli plane. In 2002, Victor Bout's name resurfaced in the headlines, but this time with a different angle related to the media, prompting many nations to take action to eliminate him. A Belgian journalist named Dirk Drallens presented a report on Bout's activities to the United Nations in 2001. To produce this report, Drawlins tracked Bout to Congo, where he was executing a deal to sell 16,000 AK rifles and over 2 million rounds of ammunition. Dirk Drawlins recalled, "Victor Bout looked like a businessman on a combined business and travel trip." While Drawlins' colleague, photojournalist Wim van Capellen, tried to approach Bout to take a picture, one of Bout's bodyguards suddenly appeared and made a throat-slitting gesture, implying they would be in danger if they attempted to photograph Bout. It was no surprise when Victor Bout flatly denied and dismissed the United Nations accusations, asserting that he was merely a businessman with many airplanes and had no concern for the cargo his clients hired him to transport, as it was not his responsibility. However, Dirk Drawlins' report sparked a media frenzy. According to Peter Landesman and Dirk Drawlins, co-authors of the book Merchant of Death, after the horrific events of 2001 in New York, stopping the black market arms trade became an urgent issue for many countries. Under pressure from the USA government, Rwanda and the Central African Republic severed all ties with Victor Bout. At the request of the British government, the Central African Republic also decided to shut down Bout's airline. From that point on, Victor Bout, a self-made businessman, officially became a target of the USA and was deemed an extremely dangerous criminal who needed to be apprehended. To arrest Victor Bout, it was crucial to prove that he was a black market arms dealer rather than just a broker or a hired transporter. In early 2007, after meticulous preparation, the USA Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, used an undercover agent to approach Victor Bout. The agent posed as a South African lawyer and proposed that Bout supply a shipment of weapons to FARC, an armed organization in Colombia, in exchange for a large quantity of illegal drugs. Victor Bout was very enthusiastic about this proposal and agreed to meet at a hotel in Thailand to discuss the details. This discussion was secretly recorded over nearly a year, involving dozens of meetings from Bangkok to Copenhagen, Curaçao, and Bulgaria. During these meetings, Bout and the lawyer discussed the time, location of delivery, types of weapons, quantities, and payment methods. Finally, when enough evidence had been gathered showing that Victor Bout had committed to supplying FARC with 6,000 guns, including submachine guns, light machine guns, heavy machine guns, millions of rounds of ammunition, tens of thousands of grenades, and 100 shoulder-fired missiles to shoot down aircraft, all to be parachuted into FARC-controlled territory, Bout was arrested. This marked the end of his arms-dealing career and made him a target for prosecution by multiple countries. In late March 2008, the USA government requested that the Royal Thai Police urgently arrest Victor Bout and extradite him to the USA under the extradition agreement between the two countries. However, Russia objected, arguing that the Thai court's decision to allow extradition was politically motivated and warned that some USA officials would be denied entry visas to Russia. In 2010, the USA federal court held a trial for Victor Bout on charges of smuggling weapons to the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, FARC, with the intent of using these weapons against USA citizens and officials who were assisting the Colombian government in its fight against illegal drugs. On April 5, 2012, during the trial, Victor Bout rejected the prosecution's arguments, asserting that if those standards were applied, all USA arms trading companies should be treated the same as him. Victor Bout's lawyer also argued that his client never stated that he was selling weapons to kill Americans. It was merely a FARC member who said that to him. It seemed this would be the end of the Merchant of Death's journey, but the Russians did everything they could to bring him back to the country. Russia consistently declared Victor Bout innocent, viewing the case as a blatant injustice and continually sought to free its citizen. According to the website of the USA Federal Bureau of Prisons, Victor Bout, now 55 years old, was supposed to serve his sentence until August 2029. However, Bout told The New Yorker that although they wanted to keep him imprisoned for life, he would return to Russia. He didn't know when, but he still felt young and full of hope. Russia had been striving to bring Victor Bout back to the country since he was convicted in New York on 4 charges, including conspiracy to kill USA citizens. More than a decade later, Viktor Bout was released, even though he had served less than half of his sentence. On December 8, 2022, the 55-year-old arms dealer was exchanged in a prisoner swap for USA basketball star Brittany Griner, who had been detained in Russia for 10 months. Many journalists called this a losing deal for the USA. So what made Viktor Bout so valuable to Moscow that they spent a decade trying to secure his freedom? Although Bout claimed to be just an innocent pilot and businessman, many experts believe he was highly useful to Russian intelligence. However, Bout denied any connection with the Russian government, insisting that he had no secret information about the Russian state and was not involved with any leaders. There have been allegations that Viktor Bout was an asset of Russian intelligence, supplying weapons worldwide to serve Moscow's geopolitical goals. Some even suggest that he served the military and high-ranking officials close to President Vladimir Putin. This speculation partly arises from the fact that both Bout and Putin were former KGB agents. If this wasn't the reason the USA spent so much time and money to detain Viktor Bout, we may never know the full truth. But one thing is certain. Viktor Bout is a mysterious, complex figure who holds significant importance to Russia's intelligence elite and national pride. Interestingly, soon after returning to Russia, Viktor Bout joined the Liberal Democratic Party of Russia, a nationalist political party. His membership was announced at the party's annual conference in Moscow, held from December 11th to 13. Bout's public support for the Kremlin, along with his notoriety, has fueled speculation that he might be considering a political career, potentially even running for the Russian parliament. Viktor Bout's journey to becoming the Merchant of Death is filled with intrigue and unanswered questions. While much about him remains a mystery, Bout has demonstrated that sometimes those who call for peace are the ones with blood on their hands. In the murky darkness of England's underworld, a chilling story gradually unfolds, a tale of immigrants who have risen to become crime lords, seizing power through cunning and violence. It is estimated that Albanian criminal groups contribute up to £6 billion to the UK's illegal drug economy. However, behind these cold statistics lie heartbreaking stories of broken families, imprisoned communities, and lives lost under the ruthless grip of addiction. So how did these immigrants come to dominate the drug market in the UK? What dark secrets are hidden beneath the surface of this criminal empire? Following the chaotic upheavals of the Kosovo War in the 1990s, a wave of refugees flooded neighboring countries and beyond, seeking safety from the violence ravaging their homeland. As the number of Albanian immigrants increased, Albanian-speaking communities began to form in the United Kingdom. These communities were reminiscent of those established in other European countries after the Kosovo crisis, providing a sense of familiarity and solidarity to the newcomers. However, amidst the struggle to rebuild their lives in a foreign land, some Albanian immigrants found themselves marginalized and facing economic difficulties, exploited in industries such as agriculture, construction, and manufacturing. They faced challenges in integrating into mainstream society. It was within this vulnerable context that the seeds of criminal organizations were sown. One of the pioneering figures of the Albanian mafia was Lulzim Berisha. He emerged in the turbulent underworld of the 1990s. Berisha, known for his cunning and ruthlessness, played a crucial role in establishing the foundations of the Albanian mafia both within and outside the country. This notorious kingpin was wanted for the murders of Vazhdin Lami and Klodian Saliu in 2005, a result of a feud between rival gangs. His associates were brought to justice 15 years later, with an Albanian court sentencing 16 members of his gang to 4 life sentences and a total of 267 years in prison for various crimes, including murder, extortion, and kidnapping. Another significant name in the Albanian mafia is Alex Rudaj, also known by the aliases Sandro Rudovic, Ali Boy, and Uncle Rudaj. Rudaj was a prominent figure in organized crime, particularly as the leader of the Rudaj organization, an Albanian mafia group based in the New York metropolitan area. Rudaj was born in Ulcinje, Montenegro, and in 1987 he immigrated to the USA, where he quickly gained notoriety in the criminal world. His criminal activities and violent methods earned him a fearsome reputation. Federal prosecutors linked him to a series of violent crimes, including a dramatic shooting in 1996. In that incident, Rudaj climbed through the sunroof of a car, chased down and shot at another member of a criminal organization in the Bronx. The high-speed chase and subsequent shooting highlighted the ruthless tactics Rudaj employed to assert his power and resolve conflicts in the underworld. Another notable event that showcased Rudaj's bold nature occurred at Rao's, a legendary and exclusive Italian restaurant in East Harlem, famous for its mafia connections. Rudaj and 20 of his men took over a table usually reserved for the late mafia boss, John Gotti. This audacious act was a clear message of his power and influence, further solidifying his fearsome reputation. Besnik Sinanaj, also known as Nicky, is another influential member of the mafia. Born in Albania, Sinanaj immigrated to the United States and became involved in organized crime. He rose through the ranks and became a prominent figure in the criminal network, dealing in everything from drug trafficking to operating illegal casinos. The wave of Albanian immigrants into Western Europe also led to the expansion of the Albanian mafia across the continent. Figures like Daut Kadriovsk, also known as Luan, played a crucial role in establishing Albanian criminal networks in countries like Germany and Switzerland. Kadriovsk's criminal activities range from human trafficking to arms smuggling, solidifying his reputation as a powerful figure in the underworld. Albanian criminal groups saw the potential for recruitment among marginalized immigrants and began targeting the vulnerable with promises of wealth and power. They lured individuals into the world of organized crime with the allure of quick money. Driven by desperation and the temptation of wealth, many succumbed to the offers of these criminal organizations. Drugs, prostitution, and human trafficking became the currency of crime as they delved deeper into illegal activities. Over 15 years, Albanian criminal organizations honed their skills, evolving from small-time smugglers into formidable drug suppliers. Their rise was marked by a ruthless determination to secure a prominent position in the county lines crime landscape in the UK. With patience and calculation, the Albanian mafia meticulously refined their operations, transitioning from small-scale smuggling to becoming sought-after drug suppliers. Recognizing the need for efficient distribution channels, Albanian criminal groups established complex networks known as county lines. These networks spread across the United Kingdom, serving as lifelines for transporting drugs from major cities to coastal and inland regions. County lines became the arteries of the underworld, facilitating the smooth movement of drugs and ensuring a more stable revenue stream. In a shrewd move, the Albanian mafia forged alliances not only with local criminal elements, but also with foreign organizations, extending their influence in the underworld. Through these collaborations, the Albanian mafia expanded their reach, tapping into resources and opportunities beyond national borders. The intersection of these criminal organizations allowed them to establish a formidable presence in the global underworld. Unlike other gangs that often resort to violence as a tool of intimidation, Albanian criminal groups chose a different approach. Instead of bloodshed, they focused on building alliances and networks, using strategy to build rather than destroy. This enabled them to navigate the dangerous waters of organized crime skillfully, leveraging relationships to consolidate power and influence in the underground economy. The Albanian mafia emerged as master strategists, leveraging their expertise to penetrate the UK drug market with exceptional efficiency. Their evolution from small-time smugglers to major suppliers, along with the establishment of county lines networks and strategic alliances, solidified their position as formidable players in the underworld. In the darkness, they chose the path of diplomacy over violence, weaving a network of alliances that ensured their dominance for years to come. In the shadowy world of crime, the Albanian mafia has exerted a significant influence and generated enormous profits within the UK's drug economy. The tentacles of these criminal groups have deeply penetrated the core of the UK's illegal drug market, contributing an estimated £6 billion. This staggering figure highlights their dominance and influence as they control the drug trade. However, their impact is not limited to drugs. Organized crime, with the Albanian mafia as a key player, has inflicted significant damage on the UK's national economy, amounting to £37 billion annually. This enormous sum reveals the true cost of their criminal activities, painting a grim picture of economic exploitation and devastation. Driven by ruthless pursuit of profit, the Albanian criminal groups have demonstrated their cunning by manipulating the market. By lowering the price of cocaine without compromising quality, they disrupted the status quo and sent shockwaves through the drug market, forcing competitors to adapt or face defeat. It's evident that the mafia is attempting to establish a monopoly in the UK drug market. Fueled by ambition and a thirst for power, the Albanian mafia has expanded its vision beyond the UK's borders. They have set their sights on Latin America, the source of the precious cocaine that forms the foundation of their empire. With high efficiency, they have established direct supply lines, tapping into the rich drug production and solidifying their control over the illegal drug market. In the annals of crime, the rise of the Albanian mafia stands as a testament to the insatiable greed and ambition lurking in the darkest corners of humanity. Their economic impact has left an indelible mark on the fabric of British society, forever altering its structure and leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. As the mafia tightens its grip on the drug market, their operational tactics have become increasingly sophisticated, posing formidable challenges to law enforcement agencies nationwide. With ruthless determination, Albanian criminal groups have infiltrated strategic European ports, including Rotterdam, Antwerp, and Algeciras. These strategic locations serve as gateways for the influx of drugs into the continent, providing crucial access points for their illicit operations. To facilitate their illegal activities, the Albanian mafia has strategically placed collaborators in key positions within port operations. These insiders provide invaluable assistance, enabling the seamless movement of contraband through customs and easily evading security measures. The Albanian mafia has employed various sophisticated methods to conceal illegal goods. They use refrigerated containers to hide drugs among legitimate shipments such as perishable foods, exploiting weaknesses in port surveillance systems. Additionally, they utilize dry transport systems with containers featuring hidden compartments to avoid detection during transportation. One of the leaders, Alex Rudaj, saw his reign come to an end on June 16, 2006, when he was sentenced to 27 years in federal prison for multiple crimes, including extortion, racketeering, and gambling-related offenses. At the time, Alex Rudaj was only 38 years old, and this sentence marked a major turning point in his criminal career, removing him from the streets and weakening his influence within the Albanian mafia. The operations of the G Bello gang were not confined to a single country, but spread across multiple locations throughout Europe, making them one of the largest cocaine smuggling networks within the Albanian mafia. Thus, the Los Blancos operation was launched. This organization had operatives in Italy, the Netherlands, and Albania, who played crucial roles in concealing drugs within vehicles and ensuring their distribution across Europe. This network was not only sophisticated in drug trafficking, but also employed complex money laundering techniques. One notable method was the use of the Fei Qian system, an underground money transfer network originating from China. This system allowed money to be sent from one country and withdrawn by an accomplice in another, effectively laundering criminal proceeds without leaving a paper trail. On December 15, 2020, coordinated raids across Europe and Dubai led to the arrest and pre-trial detention of 20 individuals linked to the Bello gang. This operation marked a high level of judicial coordination provided by Eurojust during the final stages of the investigation, with the direct involvement of prosecutors and investigating judges playing a crucial role in the execution and adjustment of European arrest warrants and judicial requests in these cross-border actions. The suspects were charged with a range of serious offenses, including international drug trafficking, illegal possession, and distribution of drugs, and violent crimes such as brutal assaults and murder. The collaborative efforts of the involved agencies exposed the full scale and complexity of the Bello Gang's criminal activities. A joint strategy was developed, facilitating the exchange of critical information and evidence necessary to bring the operation to a successful conclusion. In 2015, a joint investigation team was established by the national authorities of Italy and the Netherlands, with the support of Eurojust and Europol, leading to significant progress. This joint effort, known as Operation Los Blancos, resulted in the seizure of nearly 4 tons of cocaine and more than 5 million euros in cash. A total of 84 members of this criminal organization were arrested in various countries. However, despite all the mafia's efforts, law enforcement agencies will not stand idly by. Operations like Los Blancos serve as a clear reminder of the relentless fight against organized crime. Through meticulous planning and close coordination, law enforcement agencies have intercepted shipments, disrupted supply chains, and apprehended key figures in criminal gangs. However, these successes are often overshadowed by the immense scale and complexity of the challenges posed by the Albanian mafia's operational tactics. In the dark world of international crime, the operational tactics of the Albanian mafia have become a formidable adversary for law enforcement agencies. With their infiltration of European ports, the placement of insiders, and sophisticated drug concealment methods, they have posed significant challenges to efforts to combat organized crime. Nevertheless, law enforcement agencies remain vigilant with the sole objective of ending the illegal drug trade. The most significant blow came from Belgian police in the ongoing battle against organized crime as law enforcement agencies grappled with the persistent challenges posed by the Albanian mafia's criminal activities. In a dramatic turn of events in mid-2018, Belgian police made a major breakthrough in the fight against drug trafficking in the UK. They intercepted a shipment of 27 tons of cocaine, an unprecedented seizure. This enormous haul, with an estimated value of billions of euros, underscored the scale and threat posed by organized crime and served as a stark reminder of the ongoing fight against drug trafficking. As the law enforcement net tightens, investigations into the involvement of Albanian families in drug trafficking continue. Suspicion deepens as authorities probe the complex web of family connections that have fueled these criminal enterprises. Undeterred by the challenges they face, law enforcement agencies persist in their tireless efforts to combat the trafficking and distribution of drugs. Through coordinated operations and strategic partnerships, they strive to dismantle the supply chains that fuel this illicit trade. However, the end of this battle remains elusive, as the resilience and adaptability of the Albanian mafia present formidable obstacles to law enforcement efforts. Despite successes, the risks and challenges of intercepting drug shipments remain a sobering reality. The cunning tactics of the mafia, their sophisticated networks, and vast resources pose significant barriers to law enforcement. From port infiltration to the concealment of contraband, the complexity of the underworld demands constant vigilance and innovative approaches to counter the ever-growing threats. Yet, amidst the darkness, a glimmer of hope remains a testament to the relentless determination to uphold the law and protect society from the scourge of drug trafficking. Beneath the headlines and statistics lie the faces of those whose lives have been devastated by the mafia's ruthless reign. Families torn apart, communities shattered, and futures stolen in the relentless pursuit of power and profit. On the streets, the damage is undeniable. Addicts, their bodies ravaged by the poisons supplied by criminal gangs, wander like ghosts, haunted by their inner demons. Children, innocent victims of a war they never asked for, grow up in the shadow of violence and fear, their childhood stolen by the streets. But the violence doesn't stop there. In the underworld, blood flows freely as rival factions fight for control of the lucrative drug trade. The death toll rises with victims of a war waged with guns and knives, where loyalty is bought with blood and betrayal is met with merciless death. However, amid the chaos, there are those who refuse to remain silent. Mothers march in the streets, demanding justice for their lost children, and communities rally together, refusing to surrender to the darkness threatening to engulf them. As the mafia's grip remains unbroken, the human toll continues to rise. We must stand together, united in our resolve to confront the darkness lurking within our society. We must shine a light on the shadows, exposing the true cost of organized crime, and refuse to turn a blind eye to the suffering it causes. Only by facing the harsh reality of the human cost can we hope to build a future free from the mafia's dominance. A future where every life is valued, every family is protected, and every community is free to thrive. The line between right and wrong becomes blurred as the mafia's influence spreads like a cancer, infiltrating every aspect of society. Authorities stand at a crossroads between indifference and action, between complacency and courage. Will we turn a blind eye to the suffering the mafia causes, or will we stand together in solidarity, determined to confront the darkness threatening to consume us? The answer lies in our hands as we forge a path toward a future where justice prevails, communities flourish, and the human spirit triumphs over adversity. As the dust settles on the battlefield of organized crime, a sobering realization emerges, a tale of power, profit, and the unending struggle for control. From humble beginnings as smugglers to dominating the lucrative drug trade, the rise of the Albanian mafia has been nothing short of meteoric. Through strategic alliances, sophisticated networks, and ruthless determination, they have carved out a dominant position in the underworld of the UK and beyond, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. However, amidst the darkness, a beacon of hope has emerged in the form of law enforcement's steadfast commitment to combating organized crime. Through relentless pursuit and coordinated efforts, authorities strive to dismantle the criminal networks preying on society. Yet, the end of this battle remains uncertain as the resilience and adaptability of the mafia demand constant vigilance and innovation. Looking ahead, the future presents daunting challenges as the fight against drug trafficking in the UK enters a new chapter. Ultimately, the struggle against organized crime is a long-term battle, requiring unity, determination, and unwavering perseverance. As society stands at the crossroads between darkness and light, the choice lies in confronting the shadows of corruption and injustice, paving the way for a safer and more secure future for all. What are your thoughts on the dominance of the Albanian mafia? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below so everyone can join the discussion. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.